Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our CFO Evolution 2.0 survey results. Really excited to have you here. My name is Lori Colvin, and I'm the partner in charge of marketing at Armanino, and I will be your moderator for the day. So first, a little business we want to start off with, and that is going ahead and talking about your webinar pane. You'll see that you can decrease or increase the webinar pane by using the arrow. And we do encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. And if we have time, we will get to them at the end of the webinar. We also want to make sure you can listen and hear everything, which means you need to choose the right setting. If you're on your computer, be sure to choose an audio option. So today, many of you are here for CPE as well as learning. And so in order to get the CPA, which is so important, is that you actually need to be on a personal computer, not on your smartphones. You need to be logged in for at least 50 consecutive minutes. You need to respond to 75% of the polling questions, and as well as completing the evaluation form at the end. And then you do all of those things and we will send you your CPE certificate. So today, what are you going to learn and hear today? Well, first off, we're really going to walk you through some of the disruptive market changes and talk about some of your strategic challenges as the CFO organization plans for the future. You're going to actually hear and see what CFOs answered in our survey results, which really shows you some of the risk and challenges and opportunities that they're looking at. And we're also going to explain our new CFO Evolution 2.0 and talk about why influencing and innovation is so important in really transforming the role of the CFO and the organization. Our presenter today is Matt Armanino, who is a partner and COO at Armanino. He also sits on the executive committee and really works on really long and short-term strategic plans. He's a huge part of the consulting practice and has really worked hand in hand to be able to deliver more solutions, broader solutions, both from a technology side as well as a strategic side, to really bring integrated solutions and drive value for our clients. He is formerly with PeopleSoft, Zebra Technologies, and WareNet, so he has sat in executive leadership roles with fast-paced growing companies and always has been sort of a leader in transforming and moving forward to meet goals. He's spoken on a range of topics from IPO and M&A, innovation, and growth. And he's actually one of the original thinkers behind the CFO Evolution and a big part of the CFO Evolution 2.0. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to start the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Lori. I get to talk about something that I am very passionate about, the CFO Evolution. We first presented these results at our CFO Evolution conference a few weeks ago, and so for those of you that weren't able to attend in person, it's a nice chance to go back over some of these results with you today. Many of you who are either longtime Armanino clients or perhaps just friends of our firm, having attended our webinars or conferences in the past, are familiar with the CFO Evolution, which is really Armanino's seminal thought leadership framework for working with finance professionals and allowing us to enable them to have a greater impact on business leadership within their role. It's also been a key element of our client service approach, providing people, process, and technology solutions to enable you to spend less time looking backwards in your role of being an accountant and protector of the business, and therefore allows you to spend more time looking forward as a strategic advisor. Today we're excited to introduce to you our 2.0 version of the CFO Evolution framework to make it even more valuable in today's complex world. It's a world that's changing around us faster than ever before. And I really wanted to just start here. It's a good starting point because here's a simple reality. World changes are occurring today at an increasingly rapid rate. This is a challenge for us because as humans, we tend to think of change as gradual or progressive and not exponential in nature. Many of you are probably familiar with Intel founder Gordon Moore, who developed a theory back in the mid-60s, which is now famously known as Moore's Law. In its current form, Moore's Law states that the amount of transistors per semiconductor should double every 2 years without added cost, allowing the computer industry to offer more processing power in lighter and smaller computing devices for the same amount of money every few years. Moore's Law, as his observation has been dubbed, is really not a law at all, nor was it intended to be a prediction. It just turned out to be one because it's become reality. And the ramifications of Moore's Law back in the mid-60s are still being felt today. The exponential growth of the semiconductor density is now used as a benchmark for progress in industry, in measuring technological innovation on a broader scale, social change, economic growth, just to name a few. So here's the thing, the same rigor that makes possible the doubling of technological capability under Moore's Law is affecting a tremendous number of other aspects of our personal and our business lives. And the effect of this exponential rather than linear change means that the pace is faster than any time in human history. And as we'll discuss this afternoon, it's really having an effect on you as finance leaders and CFOs. So we'll explore that more closely throughout this presentation, but let's first take a look at the basis for Armanino's thought leadership, and that is our CFO Evolution Survey. We conduct this survey, an annual survey, to better understand priorities, plans, and key initiatives of our clients who are generally CFOs or somebody within the CFO organization. We've been conducting the survey for nearly a decade now and have had literally thousands of CFOs and other finance leaders participate. In effect, we ask questions every year as one way to just keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the marketplace. And then we combine those survey results with our real-world client engagement experiences and our own market research, and we apply those findings to our CFO Evolution framework to demonstrate how CFOs and their organization can transform their role and drive their organizations forward. Finally, we compile the results and we share all that knowledge to our clients and to folks like you every year so that you can benefit from the information and think about initiatives that perhaps you could be focusing on within your own organization. So here it is. Here's the initial CFO Evolution framework, the infographic. And this infographic brought great clarity to the struggle our clients were feeling back when we first introduced it almost a decade ago and still feel today. Our clients have a desire to spend more time in business leadership, but they are stuck spending the majority of their time on accounting tasks, looking backwards at historical results. That's been a trend we've seen for many years. But when we ask them where they'd like to be, they say they'd like to streamline that function, being very fast and accurate and freeing up organizational capacity to engage in more strategic activities. We've named that desired shift from where CFOs find themselves today to where they'd like to be, the CFO evolution. And here's the thing. The CFO evolution, the shift I just talked about, moving from spending more time on traditional, spending time more on the traditional, moving from time in the traditional role as an accountant to a more strategic business leadership role it's still very, very relevant today. It's an analytical framework that allows you and CFOs to look internally at the levers that you can pull within your own organization, those that you have control over, to affect change, to streamline the accounting function, to enhance organizational value contribution. But here's the deal, as we'll discuss in today's presentation, we all have to realize that there are more external pressures today, pressures outside the four walls of our own business that are creating challenges like we've never seen before. These disruptive market forces are happening that are totally different today than at any time in our past. And as I said from the start, the challenge with these external disruptors and what they present to our business is that they're compounded by the speed at which they're taking hold and at the speed at which they're impacting at us. These things are just happening so incredibly quickly. The disruptive forces create new challenges and potential threats, but here's the thing, they also create new and exciting opportunities. And the key will be just how agile we can be in responding to them. One thing's for sure, it's a call to action for companies to consider what changes they'll make and need to make in order for their businesses to survive. Perhaps Rupert Murdoch said it best, in addition to agility, the ultimate measuring stick of our success may just be whether or not our internal pace of change can keep up with these disruptive forces around us. In other words, those who are fast will prevail over those that are slow. So let's take a look and see whether any of this that I'm talking about is resonating with this year's survey respondents.
Right, so now we're going to do our first polling question, and remember, if you want CPE, you do need to participate in these. So our question is, what percent of CFOs believe that if they fail to transform today, they will not exist in the future? So you're going to answer A is 13%, B 23%, C 53%, or D 73%.
Just to clarify, the question is what percent believe that their businesses need to transform. In other words, if their businesses fail to transform today, the business will not exist in the future.
All right, we are giving you some time to answer. And we're going to shut the polling down in 3 seconds. So 3, 2, and 1. Thank you. So Matt, why don't we take a look at the results and see what you think?
All right. It looks like the majority, that's pretty close. 43% said 73%, and 42 said 53. Well, the right answer is actually 73%. That's an incredible number. 73% of our survey respondents believe that if their company fails to transform today, it will not exist in the future. You know that you have to evolve or die with those statistics. And here's the thing, you're right in line with your CEOs. In a recent KPMG study, 7 in 10 of them said their companies will look dramatically different 3 years from now if they are to survive. In fact, they say that over the next 3 years, their businesses will see more change than the previous 50. So that's pretty consistent there between what the CFO organization's feeling like and chief executives. Let's dive a little bit deeper into some of these survey results. 78% again said they feel that the competitive landscape is significantly changing. This was really one of those things that jumped out in this year's survey results. You know, folks in the survey had a chance to give us comments, and they tell us that the competition is harder than ever before. We saw things like the competition is fiercer than ever. Competitors who don't even know their costs are offering crazy low prices. There's no basis in reality. So this was really a common theme in the responses we saw this year. Oops, excuse me. Go back there. The other one was nearly 80% of you feel that your company has to dramatically increase the pace at which you adapt to change. So the survey results seem to validate that there's a burning platform here around this issue. But here's the thing that I thought was pretty remarkable. 80% say that of the respondents have not yet started to create budgets for transformation or innovation initiatives. So a large number of folks just simply aren't putting dollars against this yet, despite the recognition that the need to transform is there. That tells me that while people believe there are disruptive forces requiring change, they've intellectualized it, they acknowledge it, And in many cases, they're talking about the need to change, but in general, they just haven't gotten to the point where they're moving to take that insight and translate it to action. Because we all know that an organization will ultimately place its dollars behind its best ideas, particularly when there's confidence in a course of action that needs to be taken. So here's the deal. In short, our survey confirms what so many of you feel. Disruptive changes are having a huge impact on our business landscapes, and specifically on the role you are being asked to play as leaders of the CFO organization. This much is clear. Humans react to big disruptive changes very differently. Some recognize the challenge and embrace it with a determined sense of necessity, while many others, even those who acknowledge the disruptive forces around them, find it extremely difficult to adapt and chart a new course of action. Just feeling more comfortable to stick with what's familiar, the familiarity of the playbook, if you will, that they're used to. This point actually was sort of ironically reinforced to me last week. I was flying across the country, and I did what so many of you do, I'm positive, and flying across the country is you decide to spend your time tuning into The Deadliest Catch. I don't know if any of you have watched The Deadliest Catch, but it is a reality TV show about crab fishermen up in Alaska. And here was the thing, the series that I was watching was reviewing the 2016 fishing season. And at the beginning of the season, all of the fishermen were told that their quotas were being cut dramatically down because of global warming, and there simply weren't as many crab around to catch. So there was this crisis of change that was needed. And these fishermen who have kind of been doing the same thing, fishing the same way for decades, literally, were confronted with what do we do with this new challenge? Well, about half of the boats decided that they were going to try something completely different. Just sort of dam the torpedoes. They were going to go deeper into further south waters and fish at greater depths than ever before and kind of change everything up. Feeling like it was a necessity. The crab must be looking for colder waters, and they were going to have to go and search for them in new places, while a number of the other captains said, nope, that's crazy. People always talk about these big changes, but it's really not affecting us yet today, and we're going to go and do the same thing as we did last year. In fact, the gentleman who I guess had kind of won the competition the year before catching the most crab fell into that category. He said, I'm going exactly back to the same fishing grounds I've always fished in, and I'm going to do it the same way. And you can probably guess how the story goes when they got to the second or third episode, and I'm now flying across country here. The gentleman who went back and tried it the same way was pulling up his crab pots with nothing in them at all. He was just skunked. Whereas the boats who went out to deeper, further waters and did everything different were still having great success catching crab. Well, eventually the boats that went back to the old fishing grounds changed their plans, and they picked up their crab pots, and they had to go and try to catch up with the others. But the point was still there. We know that things are going on around us, and the real question is, how are we going to react? How well are we keeping up with the pace of change around us? And again, are we embracing it with transformational ideas, or perhaps mistakenly sticking with the status quo simply because it's more familiar? This topic's been talked about a lot in academic circles. I've had some time over the last number of years to spend with a number of professors from Harvard Business School, and they've applied a unique name to it. It's actually an acronym called VUCA. So, Lori, I'll pass it back to you for the second polling question.
Okay, the second polling question, which is going to ask all of you what VUCA stands for. Now, you've got 4 choices up there, and you can all see them. It's probably easier for you to see them, for me to read them. But we do want you to answer what you believe VUCA stands for. Lots of choices. My personal favorite, valet, undercover agent, caretaker, or accountant. My personal favorite. And I see not many of you agree with my personal favorite, but we see you guys are doing good. You are jumping on and answering. I do want to give the polling some time because, as I mentioned, you do need to answer 75% of the polling questions in order to get CPE. So we're going to leave it open a little bit longer. Okay, so we're going to give it 3 more seconds, and I'll count it down. So we've got 3, 2, 1. Okay, we will close the poll and we'll see how well folks did with VUCA. Matt, take a look.
All right, and people picked B, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, and that's exactly right. That's what the acronym stands for, and in short, this is what we are feeling. We're living in a VUCA world today. The term VUCA, interestingly enough, was introduced by the U.S. Army War College to describe a more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous multilateral world, which resulted after the end of the Cold War. The acronym VUCA came about, it was the mid-90s, and it took hold as a way that the military would prepare for and fight wars after the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. And it's been used to sort of perfectly describe the fighting conditions in both Afghanistan and Iraq. So that's interesting background, but more important for today is what I said earlier, and that is Harvard Business School has adopted the acronym VUCA to describe today's ever-shifting business landscape. It has become shorthand in their mind for this overarching statement, it's crazy out there. It's just, it's a crazy world that we are living in. And really, you know, you just need to go no further than the newspaper every week for evidence of this VUCA world that we live in. Here's a glimpse of some of the headlines that I pulled over the past few weeks that really make the point. And these are, specific examples of VUCA related to cybersecurity breaches and the increasing frequency of corporate cyber attacks, uncertainty about tax policy, the risk of technology displacement, immigration policy ambiguity with DACA, and a significant and complex change in our regulatory environment, like the Rev Rec changes. The world, everything around us, is a lot less certain today. With many of the events of the past year, Brexit, the election of Donald Trump, today the crisis in the Korean Peninsula, just to name a few, are reasons why business leaders have entered into a new era requiring new ways of leading. There is a lack of visibility of what to expect in terms of healthcare policy, financial transactions, national security, global trade, all of which are vitally important to company leaders, to their employees, and to their stakeholders. Top business thinkers like the professors at HBS, at Harvard Business School, tell us that traditional management methods seem no longer sufficient to address the volume of changes that we are seeing today. In short, business leaders have to deal with growing uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in their decision-making environments. So let's take a closer look at how VUCA is manifesting itself in your world. Okay, so what does this mean to you as a CFO? Let's look at the survey and what respondents told us. Our survey respondents called out 3 categories as having the biggest disruptive impact on their business. The first, 80% identified significant increase in customer expectations. This was one of the big themes in the responses that came out this year. The second, as I mentioned before, is around the competitive landscape. 73% pointed to major shifts in the competitive landscape. And lastly, 65% focused on disruptive technology changes. I think this third area, the trends around major technology advancements, is a key driver that is affecting change in our world. So I guess I want to spend just a few more minutes discussing that one, and here's why. I'll let this chart come up. We all acknowledge that businesses are being buffeted by change from all sides. political uncertainty, new business models, social unrest. But while those issues tend to grab the headlines, like the ones I just showed you, their power to create change is really more on an incremental pace. Whereas, and all of us know this, living here in the Silicon Valley, in today's world in general, that explosive technology innovation creates change on an exponential scale. Leading research firm Gartner reports that this trend of technology disruption will only accelerate beyond 2017. For instance, I just read that in a recent report, they suggest that by 2020, it's just 3 short years away, algorithms and bots will alter the behavior of over 1 billion global workers. I mean, that's nearly 1/7 of the world's population. It's pretty mind-boggling. And for those of you who go on our website and download the white paper that we've published on the CFO Evolution 2.0, you'll see that this trend is being referred to today as the 4th Industrial Revolution. It's underway. Forbes magazine actually just did a write-up on it, and they described it in the following way. They said the first industrial revolution harnessed the power of steam and water. The second industrial revolution introduced electricity for mass production. The third brought us the internet, communication technologies, and the digitalization of everything. And the fourth industrial revolution is this concept of the blurring of the real world with the technological world. And we can see this happening in several areas already. Virtual reality today exists that allows us to transport to new worlds or consume and interact with information in new ways. Robots and software are working side by side with humans even today. Excuse me. Artificial intelligence tools like IBM Watson are being used to help doctors diagnose you, and that's just for starters. There are nanobots being developed that could one day be injected into your bloodstream to cure you of an illness that you don't even know that you have. And 3D printing. This is just mind-boggling to me. I have a son who's in college, an engineering student, and he understands this better than I do. But 3D printing of new limbs and organs are being created today that will be surgically implanted into patients. So, again, as we read about on a daily basis, technology changes like machine learning, robotic process automation, and blockchain are significantly impacting the world that you all live in, the world of accounting and finance. All right, so the question becomes, when technology fuses with people in our real lives, how does that impact and change the way that we work? Brian Solis from Altimeter Group tells us this. This is a time of digital Darwinism, an era where technology and society are evolving faster than businesses can naturally adapt. This sets the stage for a new era of leadership, a new generation of business models, charging behind a mantra of adapt or die. I like the quote. It reminds me of an old saying. I think it was Andy Grove who said it, and he said that threats come not from technology, new technology itself, but from the new business models that are created to exploit that technology. Now, is that a good thing, or is that bad for you as a CFO? Ultimately, it depends on your response. And, you know, judging from our CFO survey results, it appears that CFOs are not responding all that well. 81% told us that they do not feel they're keeping up with the pace of change. So here's the crux of the situation. You're all hearing about artificial intelligence and robots becoming mainstream. It's, like I said, it's in the news every day. But our survey results tell us that you're not yet sure what the plan should be to address these technology trends yet. Here's the key takeaway. I think now is the time to engage. Today, you have to think about this. You have to think about how you can evolve your own organization's pace of innovation and change. Remember the survey result I showed you a few minutes back. 73% of you say that transformation is mission critical for your organization's survival. So there's going to be winners and losers in all this, and obviously I know you all want to win. So now's the time that we have to come up with a plan. So I know when I did this presentation in person with several hundred finance professionals in the room, it was early in the morning, I had a number of people that were kind of sitting up in their seats, and I felt like I'd kind of woken everybody up. I think people were looking around saying, oh my God, Matt, what the heck am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do with all of this? I think the reality is that instability is the new normal. We better get prepared for it. And in order to do that, and I want to talk about that instability, I think it'd be helpful in order to move forward to just start by taking a step back. Our prior CFO evolution concentrated on internal factors, as I mentioned before. Those factors were very company specific. Notice that the categories of people, process, and technology are at the heart of that internal focus. Those are the things that allow you to address the areas that you can control within your business. We've helped clients by completing specific projects related to those three categories, enabling them to become more efficient, streamlined, and to focus more on business leadership. Well, here's the thing today. While everybody wants to move more to business leadership, and that is still a relevant goal, there are today these new disruptive forces that we've been talking about, these disruptive market changes that are pressing up against the model and that are having an impact on our business success. Now, whether these are geopolitical forces, social trends, the uber competitive landscape that I've talked about, or the amazing technology that we've highlighted, they are having a significant impact that is requiring CFOs to become more transformational. The next evolution of our model is founded on the skill sets needed to address these disruptive outside forces and enable CFOs to not only become more of a strategic leader, but to become a key player in determining their company's response to these changes. And again, what we're talking about is this need to become transformational. That doesn't eliminate your three primary roles that we've always talked about, the role of accountant, protector, and leader, or the desired time that you have to spend on them. Instead, it focuses on the specific game-changing skill sets that you need to apply to your role in order to address these disruptive challenges out in the marketplace. And those skill sets are innovation and influence. So let's take a minute and kind of walk through each of these. What's an innovator? A CFO who embraces change across the entire organization, not just the finance department. The innovative CFO or finance leader works with others to invent new business models to put their competitors at a disadvantage, create staffing plans that are nimble and responsive to the VUCA world we've talked about, or seek to understand and apply technology tools to empower the organization. A CFO challenges the status quo constantly and seeks learning opportunities is an innovator. Now, what do we mean by influence and being an influencer? Well, a CFO who builds consensus, initiates action, and implements those innovative ideas is an influencer. The reality is this: great innovative ideas that are not executed on are simply wasted opportunities. So the influential CFO needs to help lead that change with communication, building business cases that support effective change. And as we've witnessed within our own firm and many of our client sites, critical team members are often spread across multiple departments, divisions, geographic locations. So CFOs must continually focus on communicating and advocating to become a world-class influencer. So in short, the CFO role has become one that requires transformational leadership. To rise to this challenge, you will need to initiate change, and use your influence and innovation like never before in order to help transform your organization and help lead its success. So, back to the survey. Let's look back at the results and see what respondents thought about this. 81% of you agreed that being an innovator is a critical skill set to the survival of your business. So that's a pretty big number. Let me read you a quote that I recently read from Acuity magazine, and I just thought it was spot on. It said this: Chief financial officers must drive innovation. They are the first to understand key financial risks and opportunities, and they hold the purse strings for investment that could combat disruption and provide new opportunities. In addition, CFOs are often closest to the market and understand market expectations and the boundaries that will guide trade-offs. So I think that is, like I said, it just hits the nail on the head. What we're really suggesting here is that you must adopt an innovator's mindset. That's the call to action. And by that I mean there can't be any sacred cows. It means that you have to question the status quo as you contemplate your opportunities to advance. It means you have to embrace technological advances for sure, rethink business strategies, and drive engagement across your whole enterprise. So here's a tangible example. You and I, we expect everything to be accessible to us 24/7 as consumers at the touch of a button or a request of Siri in my kid's case. Yet, if you think about our employees, I mean, they deal with, in many cases, with back-end systems that, you know, as I said, in many cases are stuck in a time warp. Outdated systems create dissatisfaction in the workplace. They zap engagement. That's just an example. The takeaway is that if you're going to get serious about technology with your employees and what they're using and how they're going to improve their jobs, it really takes a complete embrace of this innovative mindset. Here's a sobering part about that. Gardner tells us that for every $1 an enterprise invests in innovation, they will require $7 for execution. But I'd say as leaders of the CFO organization, we need to stop taking pride in being the organization or the CFO who never spends money, that's a badge of honor. And instead, we have to actively uncover what, in many cases, may be game-changing, company-saving ROI that can be achieved through necessary innovation. All right, Laura, I'll pass it back to you for the third polling question.
Okay, the third polling question is, now let's talk about influence a little bit. What percent of our CFOs believe being an influencer is key to survival? So we've got A, 24%, B, 54%, C, 74%, and D, 94%. So again, what percent did CFOs believe influencer is key to survival? So we want to give it a little time so that you get all of your polling questions for your CPE. Okay, we are going to shut the poll in 3 seconds. So you can get in your answers on 3, 2, and 1. We'll shut the polling question. So Matt, take a look and see what folks answered.
Well, most of you said that 74% believe it's a critical skill, and it's actually higher than that. There was no stronger statistic in our survey this year than this one. 94%. I mean, that's almost everyone said that that in order for their organizations to thrive in the future, they need to be an influencer. And here's the other thing. 87% of you say that you're feeling an increased demand to collaborate on cross-functional initiatives. So you recognize that the success of being an influencer depends not just on focusing on the finance organization. It means extending beyond department lines to influence others in other lines of business. So that is very, very significant for sure. So what's at the heart of leading through influence? In order to lead, you need to be able to captivate and guide others to action. That's really how an influencer becomes an initiator, in my mind. And I recognize that this can all feel a bit overwhelming. Remember, though, that not all innovation manifests itself in big ways, right? Excuse me. Innovation can become reality in just very simple, tangible ways with the right influence. Let me digress for a minute. I already see one of the questions that have come in and asked for a real-life example, so I'm going to just give you one now because I'm thinking about a client that we've currently been working with. And this is a client, it's actually an asset management company who's worked in what I'll call a traditional accounting-only model. In other words, they don't have a separate finance department to handle things like ad hoc reporting or analysis requests. So what happens is that the accounting team answers all those demands, and they're frequent in nature, using a very manual spreadsheet-based process, and as a result, they get bogged down. It's work on top of their day job. This is drug out their close process to over 20 days each month. And as a result of the kind of the frustrations with what they're experiencing, the controller turned to Armanino for an assessment of their organization, and change started right away. So the controller teamed with Armanino, and in turn we teamed with the controller and the CFO to start questioning, is there a better way? And we worked across departments, engaging others from operations, the investment and technology departments to seek input and build consensus for the changes that needed to be made. The result of this assessment and roundtable and interview process was that the CEO recognized the need for change and approved significant investments that have paid off for the whole company. They have, for example, created a separate finance department to provide FP&A services and handle these ad hoc reporting requests. And with the finance department separated from the accounting department, the accounting team is now able to close the books in a much shorter time frame and focus on their job. In addition, we've helped them deploy intact and adaptive insights and leverage cloud technology to drive overall efficiency and sort of productivity gain within the organization. Here's the bottom line. By captivating and guiding the entire company to a vision of a more responsive and efficient finance and accounting model, the controller and the CFO are now reaping the benefits of all the time they spent on influencing the organization for that change. Okay, so let me see if I can try to sum things up a little bit here, but before I do so, Lori, I'm going to let you ask the fourth and final polling question.
Okay, so the last question is, what is most important for the CFO organization moving forward? Is it A, that CFOs must influence and innovate? B, that CFOs must transform? C, CFOs can't do it alone? Or D, all of the above? So when you think about moving forward and transforming, what is most important? CFOs in influencing and innovating, they must transform, they can't do it alone, or D, all of the above. So this is the last polling question, so make sure to participate. And we are going to close it out in 3 seconds, give you a little more time. So we're at 3, 2, and 1. Thank you.
All right, well, that was a softball for sure, just to make sure people were paying attention, so congratulations. It was all of the above. All right, maybe before we get to some questions, I just want to wrap things up. We've talked about very high-level summary of our survey results this year, but most importantly, we've talked about the external factors that are driving business disruption. And I've suggested a new way to regard your role as a transformational CFO. that's really the goal of the 2.0 framework. I hope you found the discussion thought-provoking. First and foremost, I need to repeat to you that the analytical framework of the original CFO evolution is still very applicable and relevant today. We're working with clients on initiatives that are people, process, and technology related, and helping drive organizational change from within each and every day. But today, there is more out there. There are more pressures on us that is forcing us to consider how we drive transformation at a larger level. I guess I'd like to conclude by sharing with you this thought, and that is ultimately no one, no industry, no company is going to be insulated from these disruptive changes. It's affecting all of us, including Armanino, and will continue to do so. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, I look back at a very powerful meeting I had a few years ago at Harvard. I had a chance to meet Professor Heidi Gardner in the business school. She's a brilliant woman. She's shared with me and others from our firm her insights from 30 years of studying finance organizations and professional service firms like ours. And she's concluded that those who are successful in dealing with the challenges and the opportunities that a VUCA world is giving us today, and that they do so with one winning strategy and one winning strategy only, and that is they don't succeed on their own. We know this stuff isn't easy and it can feel overwhelming. You might be sitting there asking yourself, well, am I innovative enough? Do I have the influence it takes to guide my company and drive significant change? Well, the good news is you're not alone. There are many people that are on this webinar that are feeling the same way. And we've brought communities of finance professionals together like this to encourage relationships and idea sharing and get a conversation started. That's the key thing. This new world creates demand for strategic relationship networks. That's really guiding our direction here at Armanino as a firm. We certainly acknowledge and appreciate that the challenges you face are more complex and cross a range of bigger and broader issues than ever before. And so as a consequence, we've seen more and more of our client relationships moving from what I'll call a project-based engagement model, where we are offering a single solution to a particular problem, to a more strategic relationship-based engagement model, where our clients want to have access to work with our experts here at the firm on a more collaborative basis, where all of the experts in our growing organization can be a resource and a thought partner to you as you grapple with these challenges and come up with ideas of how to move your organization forward. So if you're interested in learning more about this new way to engage with Armanino, just please follow up with us. We'd be happy to share with you more about it. Professor Heidi Gardner says that today everything is relationship driven. Our success is dependent on that, and our goal is to deepen our relationships with all of you as you work to become a transformational CFO. So thank you very much. We do have a few minutes for a couple of questions here, Lori. So.
Yeah, we've got some good questions in here, so I'll go ahead and read it to you, Matt. And then, okay, so the first one is, in your survey, were you able to see where CFOs were actually going to be investing in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we did see a number of areas, and again, you can see, I would encourage you to download the white paper and get more of the results there for yourself. But a couple of key areas, roadmaps, technology roadmaps is a big interest on the part of clients right now. How do we leverage technology and all of these changes? How do we adapt internal business processes and external business models to take advantage of technology? We help many clients with that. That is one of the top things that came across. Along with that, and related to it for certain, is business process automation, key area of investment in leadership training. I think there's a recognition on the part of our clients that their leaders are continuing to develop in new areas, testing these new skill sets, and they're trying to support that with training.
Okay, so let me look here. Okay, the second one is, what sort of, you talked about relationship networks, right? So what sort of relationship networks do you see the best in class CFOs using?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's different different networks that we all have. I was talking recently to one of our clients and good friends, Brian Kenyon, former CFO at Marketo, and he was mentioning all of the CFOs and controllers that are part of his network, and who he talks to, and who talk to him to seek his input on what he's seen and what he's done. So I think, first of all, peer-to-peer networks are really, really important. But I also think having some trusted relationships with advisors, folks like Armanino, people that have the breadth and depth of experience that see a lot of things across a broad client base. They see best practices, they see what's working and perhaps not working as part of that network. So those are some of the things that we see for sure. Okay.
Okay. Here is another one. Does Armanino have a change management practice? In other words, do you help clients with putting together change management and communication plans?
We do. The practice here is called strategy and transformation. It's a really exciting area for us. It adopts a lot of traditional management consulting techniques, the type of things you'd see McKinsey or Bain or BCG using at an enterprise level. And for many, many years, our more traditional middle market clients who are growing have looked for resources, trusted resources they could turn to help with assessments, with road mapping, whether they be operational assessments, strategy assessments, as I mentioned, perhaps technology assessments, or even more specific and targeted issues that they're dealing with, things like cybersecurity assessments. So this group, it's a group of folks that have strong finance backgrounds, but more importantly, they have very strong industry and operational backgrounds. Almost all of the practitioners and consultants in this practice have MBAs and direct industry and management consulting backgrounds. So they engage with our clients, certainly with CFO organizations, but also with the rest of the C-suite and boards as well, to engage in assessments and roundtable discussions. And the real goal is to come up with a game plan, to come up with a roadmap and a set of recommendations to help our clients get from where they are today to where they'd like to be, and how to address the specific challenges that they're facing in their business. So again, strategy and transformation is one of the key mechanisms that we're doing that today.
Okay, you know what? I'm just sorry, guys. I'm looking at these little words of all the type questions, and I think that there were some CPE questions that came up, so we'll deal with those on a one-off, but I think that does it. One of the things I wanted to let you know is we will be emailing out to you these slides as well as the white paper. You can also go on our website, and on the home page, the big slider has the CFO evolution framework as well as the white paper if you want to download it. So we really appreciate you coming, and thanks for all your nice comments on this session. You know, it is really about thinking differently and moving forward and future-proofing your business for the future. So we appreciate your time, and we will see you on the next webinar. Thanks again, and thank you, Matt.
Thanks, everyone.